House Majority Leader Steve Scalise visited the New York Stock Exchange yesterday. His appearance came after the House passed the budget resolution last week, paving the way for President Donald Trump's tax cuts. Representative Scalise shared more about the budget with me. He also gave his take on tariffs and previewed the return of recent Masters winner Rory McIlroy to Louisiana. Here's more.
So budget reconciliation is a two-step process. You first need to pass the budget, which we did now, and then you start what's called the reconciliation process. And why that's so important is it's an ability for us not just to pass a bill through the House with a majority vote, but in the Senate, they normally have the filibuster, and it takes 60 votes to pass most bills. You only need 51 votes to pass this bill. So when you think about keeping tax rates low, which right now, if Congress takes no action, there will be a $4.5 trillion tax increase. 90% of families will see their taxes go up. We don't want that to happen. So in this bill, we're going to keep all the current rates where they are, no tax hikes. We're going to try to do some more pro-growth tax policy. We're going to have some energy production and exploration opened up in this bill. We're going to increase border security and fund some of President Trump's border initiatives to keep our border secure in this bill. We're going to deal with a few other things, too, hopefully some rule and regulatory reform, pulling in some of the DOGE savings that they've identified, putting that in this bill, too. So it's a very powerful tool. There's a lot of work to be done. 11 committees in the House have already started the work, but right when we come back from Easter, you're going to see those committees meeting in public view on C-SPAN, where you'll see the actual reconciliation bill moving through. And this is going to focus on not just taxes, but getting this economy back on track, lowering inflation, lowering interest rates for families.
What is the economic impact that you see from passing this?
You know, you're going to get tremendous economic growth. You hear right now about so much money sitting on the sidelines, a lot of uncertainty because the tax code is so uncertain. You know, again, if Congress takes no action, you have a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. So that has caused a pause on a lot of businesses investing in America's economy. We want to remove that uncertainty. I've heard over $4 trillion of money is just sitting on the sidelines waiting for Congress to get this done. So let's move it quickly. Hopefully by Memorial Day, we can have this bill on President Trump's desk. Then you can see real economic growth, meaning, you know, jobs being created, wages going up for families, costs coming down at the grocery store and at the gas pump. All those things will happen when we pass this bill.
What are the specific cuts and spending increases that you want to see in this bill?
So obviously keeping individual income tax rates where they are so that you don't have an increase on individual rates is important. Small businesses, for example, would see a massive tax increase if we take no action. So protecting small businesses so they can remain competitive, not just on Main Street, but with global industries. You know, our small businesses deserve to be competitive with big corporations. We're going to do that in the bill, too. And again, focusing on economic growth, things like bonus depreciation, immediate expensing. Those are things that brought a lot of investment in new manufacturing equipment, things that create more jobs for companies. So if you want a company to build a new plant so they can hire more workers in America, those are the kind of incentives we're going to have in this bill so that you not only see wage growth for American workers, but you see more jobs created here, too.
Corporate earnings season is getting started, and already we've seen several companies pause guidance, citing uncertainty around tariffs. Are you still in support of tariffs?
Well, I've heard from a lot of companies, and there's definitely tremendous uncertainty, but also people really want to know what is the end game. And, you know, if you listen to President Trump, he's talked about getting fair trade deals. You know, there are a lot of countries, friend and foe alike, but especially our friends around the world, that haven't necessarily been treating us fairly when it comes to trade. You know, you go to Europe and good luck trying to buy an American car anywhere in Europe. You can walk on any street in America and find many European cars. You know, so just having fair access to markets. Those countries that have had tariffs against us and we have had none against them, I think what the president wants is to see a zero tariff reciprocation when he talks about reciprocal tariffs. If every country was at zero with us, we're zero with them, then you truly have fair trade with all countries around the world. And I think Japan is that first country that's in line. You know, President Trump said 75 countries have already reached out saying they want to renegotiate now. And so hopefully we see Japan and so many other countries work to get fair trade, zero tariffs with all of the, you know, the countries that we deal with.
Are you speaking to the president directly about the path forward on tariffs?
He and I have talked about it, you know, and he talked about it during the campaign. This is not a new issue, you know, and even in his first term, he used tariffs for leverage to get other things. And, you look at Mexico. He threatened to put a tariff on Mexico to get the Remain in Mexico protocol, which ultimately, once he dropped any attempt at tariffs on Mexico. So, we got a new USMCA deal. So hopefully we get new trade deals. A lot of our Asian friends want to get new trade deals. Let's go try to do that. Europe wants to get a new trade deal. Let's do that too, but in a way where we have fair treatment from our friends and foes alike around the world.
We've seen probes into semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, those two particular industries, on the grounds of national security. What's that case?
So, you saw NVIDIA make a major announcement, hundreds of billions of dollars in building a new plant here in America. Pharmaceuticals, you hear a lot about, the fact that we really don't make a lot of drugs in America, especially generics. They're all made in China. That's a problem too. You saw this during COVID when you couldn't even buy masks or gloves for hospitals because so much of it was made in China, and it's a national security issue. So we are trying to bring a lot of that manufacturing back to America, and we're already seeing the beginning of it. I mean, my home state of Louisiana just had a major announcement from Hyundai that's going to be building a multi-billion-dollar plant to make steel for all of their cars here in the United States, and they're building some more car plants in the United States. You've seen other companies do that too here in America. So if we end up making more things in America, and then our friends around the world start treating us better in trade policy, it'll all be worth it.
Consumers, based on sentiment reads, do anticipate prices to rise, and that is amid tariffs. In passing the budget resolution and now with reconciliation on the horizon, do you think that could offset some of the uncertainty around tariffs?
Absolutely, it can. And, one of the things we're focused on with the budget reconciliation bill is economic growth, growing the economy. And that really means wage growth, more money in your pocket if you're a hardworking taxpayer out there. And we saw this the first time when we passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. Every income level benefited in America, but especially the lower and middle income groups in America's economy did better than they've ever done before. We saw more small businesses started, more women-owned businesses started because of that bill. We want to see that kind of economic growth where everybody benefits from the work we're doing right now.
And of course, just a few weeks from now, Rory McIlroy, Masters winner, set to go to your home state of Louisiana. Are you going to see him in the Zurich Classic?
Absolutely. We're excited to welcome Rory back. Rory and Shane Lowry played in the pairs tournament in the Zurich Classic last year in New Orleans and won the tournament. I'd like to say that helped kickstart his great year that he's having right now. We were so excited to see him win the Masters and the Grand Slam, but he's already committed to come back to New Orleans next week, and Zurich has been a great partner leading the way with the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. It's been great for the New Orleans region, and to bring in world-class golfers like Rory McIlroy. Their ticket sales are off the chart. You not only get to see great golf, there's great food. New Orleans restaurants provide a lot of the food for the Zurich Classic too. So you can see the best golfers in the world with the best food in the world come to the Zurich Classic in New Orleans.
All right, thanks again to Representative Steve Scalise for that interview here at the New York Stock Exchange. Well, coming up, we're going to check in on some market activity taking place before the opening bell and what could drive stocks during today's session. That's next.